Powerlifting is kind of like a sport where you really have to play to your own strengths. I feel like it's a sport where it's kind of fair. So like if you're a basketball player, you can grow up tall and you know that you can be pretty good at basketball, or I mean certain things, you know, you can like have genetic advantages for certain sports and it really helps you. But powerlifting, um everyone can kind of get into it and work to like get to a really high level. I feel like there are some people that have the genetics to be the 0.00001% greatest of all time, and then a lot of people don't. But to get to like an elite level, I think just about anyone can. um if you take a subset of like a lot of different people, a lot of guys or a lot of girls, they're all built differently, but they would, just based on being built differently, they would be built for a certain lift more than the other. All people are kind of at least built for one lift, or at least built for bench or squat or deadlift, just on how short or long, short or tall they are, kind of what like how long their arms are, or how long their femurs are, their torso is, and all of that. But I think that it's really a sport that you want to play to your strengths. And I think competitive sports in general, like it's like whatever edge you have, you want to use it to the full ability that you can, um, because at the end of the day, it's like who wins is who wins in the competition. So if you have any edge over another person, you want to use it to the best of your ability. If that edge is intelligence, then you design your training, your routines, your diet, and your sleep and all of that very intelligently, and you use research and whatever else to you use your intelligence to your benefit. If that strength is intensity, if you can go more intense than the average person, maybe you can incorporate that into your training, and you train with more intensity than a lot of the lifters you're competing with are, because you can handle it, and like maybe your body responds well to it and adapts well to it. um, if your strength is I mean, and it could be any number of things, you know. If your strength is you can hold like a lot of muscle, then you can use that to your advantage. If your strength is you learn how to cut weight really well, you can use that to your advantage. Part of a lot of these things are like what you can learn. You learn form, you learn technique, you learn different things that can help you. But then other parts of it are really like making the best use of strengths that you already have. So for example, I know that like I mean I have weaknesses and I have strengths that help me and hurt me in the sport. So like but again, it's like you want to look at what you can kind of positively contribute, what positively contributes to your progress in the sport, and like what kind of helps your strengths. So I know that genetically, like I was always the skinniest kid, so even though I've put on 30-40 pounds of muscle, like I'm not very muscular. And I'm not gonna be the same muscular as like a black dude, you know. And I guess that sounds racist, but like, or just like anyone who's like really genetically built. Like my best friend, he's like black. He doesn't work out. He just runs, and he doesn't lift weights at all. And he's way more jacked than I could ever be if I mean, I lift like 4 or 5 times a week, and like he's more jacked than I can ever be. You know, so that's where one place where I have weakness. But then somewhere where I have strength is that I'm really good at consistency. So I know that like if I had to eat like the same things like every day, and I have to have like a really rigorous protocol where like I eat the same boring clean foods, I take the same like fish oil or whatever, like few supplements, and go to bed at like 9 or 10 p.m. like every day, and like do that very strict, I can do that really well, you know. And like other people can't do that as well as I can, maybe, you know. So that's a strength. um Another strength that I have, I never really talk about it too much. At some point I'll really talk about it more, but I have a condition called synesthesia, which is it's a really cool cool kind of phenomenon, and real cool condition where like people, their senses are mixed. So some people, they can taste their colors, or they can smell in like sounds. A lot of it is with colors. They see their numbers in color, or they see music and they see colors like in the air. For my particular synesthesia, I can feel what I listen to. So like I can um anything that I hear, any type of music, it creates different sensations in my body. So I get a genetic advantage in that sense because when I listen to certain songs, like it can really hype me up. I never really use caffeine or pre-workout that much because I can listen to a certain song and I can feel it all through my body, and I can go and kind of just go for a PR, and it like really fires me up. And at the same time, if I'm not peaked for it and I'm not trained for it, I'm not going to be able to hit it. But it helps me get into that mental state, you know? So that's another advantage that I have, that I can maybe get into a certain state at certain psyched up or like peak state for going and lifting these heavy weights more than an average person can. So at the end of the day, like to be the best lifter is utilizing a lot of your strengths. And you'd be surprised if you look at like a lot of the IPF guys or just different competitions, that many of the lifters, like you look and one of them is huge and jacked and super muscular, and they're like short and they have like like a huge ass and like short legs and short hips and stuff, and you're like, dude, that guy's gonna dominate. And then you see like his competitions, like a really skinny tall like Asian guy with like kind of shit like limb lengths and like poor genetics and stuff, you know, and he's not very muscular, and it's that guy that goes and beats the super muscular muscular like short femur guy, short limb length guy, you know, and like everyone's betting on that guy. But then it will be the guy, a lot of the time it will be the guy you wouldn't expect, because the person that wins is the person that uses their gifts to the best of their abilities, you know? And if you have strengths and weaknesses, you can bring up your weaknesses, but they'll never match up your strengths, you know? So your strengths, like, if you brought up your weaknesses a lot, they wouldn't still match up to your strengths being mediocre. And if you brought your strengths up a lot, they would kind of like, surpass and like overcome and exceed like everything else, you know? So your strengths, if you can work to them, you work to your gifts, your abilities, your natural strengths, that will yield the best return for you. Another thing to consider too is like you can work on it, but like you are who you are. So like your tendencies, your weaknesses will kind of tend to be your tendencies and weaknesses. You can bring them up and work on them, but at the end of the day, to win is winning with your natural personality, you know, and in ways that it doesn't change, in ways your weaknesses and your tendencies don't change. And that's why I say that you utilize the strengths and gifts and abilities that you have, and your edge. What is your edge? You want to utilize that to the furthest extent that you can for the competitive sport. And there's so many different examples in the sport of powerlifting of different kinds of edges that you can have, you know. There are guys that cut weight really really well, and they can cut like 20 pounds or more and do it healthily. I know that I lose weight pretty easily, actually, so I guess that's sort of an edge. But then where my weight class is like I can't cut like 15 pounds to go to a lower weight class. Like I weigh around 148, you know, so I can't. I'm kind of stuck. Like that doesn't help me. But then my point is that whatever edge you have, whatever ability you have or strength that you have one up on the other lifters, utilize that and use that to the best of your ability, to the fullest like extent that you can. That can be for a certain lift, for an individual lift, or it can be for a training style, it can be for a certain type of diet, something that works for you, certain neurological adaptations, certain ways you take your pre-workout or your ammonia, or like edges that you have that you don't tell anyone about. And it can be all sorts of things, you know. People use even and again, like, this is a big ethical thing, and I don't think it's a good thing to do. But then I'm saying, just as a matter of a statement of fact, that like people do this. People will use drugs in the off season and bulk up and then come off the drugs and keep their size, you know. And that's the edge, quote unquote edge, that they have. And that's not like the type of edge I'm saying. Like, you want to stay in the rules of the sport, the rules of the game, but at the same time, any edge that you can have, you want to use to the best of your ability. And powerlifting is a strength where anyone from any walk of life can really come and I believe dominate and go to a really high level, just by utilizing the strengths and the edges that they have, and utilizing the edge that you have on your other competition and the people you're going up against, you know. So those are just kind of my thoughts on the topic. um, I mean, I've lifted fairly heavy weights, squatted 3 and a quarter, deadlifted 500 pounds, weighing around 150, 148 to 150. I've benched 2 plates, which isn't that much. That's my kind of poverty bench. But I've done it, and then like I think like a lot of people can do it. And I've lifted, like, done powerlifting style of training 3 years, maybe 4 years, lifted in total 6 years. I think anyone can come and get to a really high level in the sport, and what it takes probably true in like a lot of different sports, but definitely in powerlifting, is that find out what your edge, what your strengths are, and what the edges you have that you can kind of beat out your competition on. What are you good at that no one else is good at, and then use those to the fullest extent, develop those to the fullest ability that you can, and then you can use that to dominate your competition, you know. Just the last thing is, I remember there's a video, Alex Becker, he's an entrepreneur, he made a video talking about like how he grew up kind of as a loser, and that like if he wanted to what's the trick to making it big, like when you're a loser growing up. And he said that, like, you know, you're a gazelle and the other people are zebras, and if you try to become a zebra, you'll always lose. But if you try to become the best possible gazelle that you possibly can be, and beat out the other zebras by being the best possible gazelle, then you can just become the best gazelle, the best version of you that you can, and then all the zebras will want to be a gazelle like you, and that's how you win. You know, you beat them not at their game but at your own game, which is by developing yourself, your own individuality, your own strengths, your own tendencies, and your own edge that you have on your competition, and that you can develop to the furthest potential that like other people really can't. So that's just kind of my thoughts on the topic. If you have an edge, really develop it to the maximum potential that you possibly can.